Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of you for taking your time to be here today. Dr. Franks, we're here to talk about free speech, correct?
Yes.
And we're here to talk about that being a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the Supreme Court plays an essential role in guaranteeing those constitutional rights, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about a tweet that you had in January 2024. The Supreme Court is a death panel. Is that your opinion?
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. If you love freedom, the Constitution, and good old-fashioned common sense, you're in the right place. Today, we need to talk about something that absolutely fired me up, and I think it's going to fire you up too. So, Senator Marsha Blackburn, one of the few in D.C. who still cares about our fundamental rights, recently grilled so-called expert Dr. Franks and some media figures on the issue of free speech and government censorship. The leftist establishment is running scared, and you can tell by the way they try to dodge basic questions about the Supreme Court and the First Amendment. Let's break down exactly what happened and why it matters for every freedom-loving American.
In the context of this hearing, I think it is important to emphasize why I am here, which is to talk about my views on the First Amendment and my understanding of the doctrine.
That's not what I asked you. Do you think the Supreme Court is a death panel?
In the context of the cases that, not for free speech, no, that was not the context of that particular
Oh my goodness, okay. Well, it appears that you see the Supreme Court as a death panel, and that is some of the same rhetoric that unfortunately we continue to hear from some on the left who are trying to villainize justices who are doing their job. And I would like to just ask you, knowing that you have put this out, that the Supreme Court is a death panel, then let me ask you this. Do you look at Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson as members of the death panel, or is this just the justices that you disagree with?
I do not believe that the comments that you are referring to have relevance for this particular hearing, but here's what I will say. This is an administration that is threatening judges in addition to other people that he disagrees with. So, okay, yes, if your question is, do I defend judges? Am I worried about judges' security? I am. I am worried about this administration essentially threatening those judges.
I want to talk with you, Ms. Hemingway, about the State Department's use of the Global Engagement Center to censor news outlets like the Daily Wire and the Federalist. I know that this is something that you have had to deal with. And Daily Wire is located in Tennessee. We're proud of them. We are delighted that they chose to move from California over to Tennessee. And it is my understanding that the Global Engagement Center was created to counter messaging from bad actors, including terrorist groups, but the Biden administration weaponized it to silence conservative groups. And what has the censorship, I call it the censorship industrial complex, what do you think they're trying to hide when it targets outlets like the Federalist and the Daily Wire?
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Yes, our reporter, Margot Cleveland, who's our senior legal writer, uncovered through her reporting facets of the censorship industrial complex and learned that the State Department was one of the federal entities that was engaging with non-governmental organizations and other entities in big tech to market, promote, censorship tools and blacklists, which were then used against my publication, The Federalist, and also the Daily Wire. Publications that are a threat to the reigning orthodoxies are targeted by the censorship industrial complex. They want to exist without people pointing out their lies or the fact that there are really important debates. And so we are suing the State Department for that, and it is ongoing, this support of the censorship industrial complex. It is the bureaucracy, really, which perpetuates this even more than a particular administration.
Yes, and I think it's so important to note that robust, respectful, bipartisan debate adds to our freedom, helps to keep us free, and allows that debate in the public square. And when you have an entity that becomes weaponized and shuts down one side of that speech and only allows speech with which it completely agrees, that is when you have that censorship writ large. My time expires. Professor Turley, I have a question I will submit to you for the record. Thank you all for joining us.
First off, Senator Blackburn lays it out plain as day. She asks Dr. Franks to confirm that free speech is a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution. That's not a trick question, folks. That's Civics 101. And yet, you can see the hesitation, the squirming, even at the most basic question. Why? Because the left has a very different idea of what free speech means. But it gets even better. Senator Blackburn brings up a tweet from Dr. Franks where he apparently called the Supreme Court a death panel. Now let's pause for a second. The Supreme Court, our highest court, the final backstop protecting our liberties, is being smeared as a death panel. That's leftist rhetoric straight out of the Saul Alinsky playbook. Demonize, delegitimize, and destroy anyone who stands in the way of their agenda. Dr. Franks tries to dodge. He says, well, that's not really relevant here. Let's talk about the First Amendment. Sorry, Dr. Franks, but your public statements matter. If you're out here calling the Supreme Court a death panel, it shows exactly what you think about the rule of law. And let me ask you this. If a conservative called a liberal justice a member of a death panel, you know the media would go ballistic. Then Senator Blackburn asks a great follow-up. Is it just the justices you disagree with, or do you think all of them are part of this so-called death panel? Classic move from the left. If they don't get their way, they throw a tantrum and attack the institution itself. That's dangerous. That's how democracies die. Dr. Franks didn't have much of an answer. Surprise, surprise. Instead, he tries to pivot and claim the administration is threatening judges. Let me tell you something. If anyone's threatening judges or the rule of law, it's the people who refuse to accept a court's decision, who encourage protests at justices' homes, who call for court packing. That's the real threat to the judiciary. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Senator Blackburn turns to Ms. Hemingway and asks about the State Department's so-called Global Engagement Center. Folks, this is a government entity that was supposed to fight terrorism. But what's happening now? It's being weaponized to target conservative media like The Federalist and the Daily Wire. Think about that. Your tax dollars, your government, being used to silence and blacklist news organizations just because they don't toe the leftist line. Hemingway calls it the censorship industrial complex. And she's absolutely right. We have federal agencies, NGOs, and big tech all colluding to shut down voices they don't like. Look, if you're a conservative, a Christian, a patriot, you've seen this coming. They want total control of the narrative. They want to make sure that only approved opinions get heard. And if you dare to question the reigning orthodoxy, you get blacklisted, demonetized, and canceled. But here's what gives me hope. People like Senator Blackburn, people like you watching this channel, are standing up and saying, enough is enough. We believe in robust, respectful, bipartisan debate. That's what makes America great. When you silence one side, you don't have a democracy. You have tyranny. And we didn't fight and die for tyranny. We fought for freedom. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let them silence you. Don't let them shame you. Stand up for your rights. Speak out. Support independent media. Call your representatives and demand accountability. The left wants you to believe that they're the only ones who care about freedom. But actions speak louder than words, folks. When the left censors, blacklists, and demonizes, they show us exactly who they are. And it's not the party of freedom. This holds-up Constitution is what we fight for. not just for ourselves, but for our children and grandchildren. Don't let them take it away. If you agree, hit that like button, subscribe for more unfiltered truth, and share this video with your friends. Let's keep the flame of liberty burning bright. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.